Her tale a tale, let it be told. On a late afternoon, when the sun put its elbows on the glass and refused to move, a boutique on Cedar Row smelled of sandalwood and new money. A young woman in a linen dress stepped in, skin the color of well-watered soil, eyes the kind that read price tags and people in the same glance. Before the bell's echo could finish its curtsy, a sales associate began to trail her between racks like a shadow that had lost its owner. "Can I help you?" the shadow asked again and again in a voice that turned help into a leash. The young woman smiled the way rivers smile when stones pretend to be dams. "I'll let you know," she said. She touched a silk scarf as if testing a rumor. The talking drum disguised as a dressing stool creaked once and muttered, "Watch the trail. Watch the girl who gathers thunder in silence. Watch the door that thinks it knows who will own it tomorrow." A week before, the city's investment council had voted to expand a fund for small and honest businesses, those with receipts neat enough for daylight. The largest check came from Sankofa Capital. Its founding partner attended with his daughter, who carried her father's curiosity and her mother's spine. People called her Aisha Sankofa. Those who mistook her for decoration never made that mistake twice. Now here she was at Silk and Sandalwood, trying to buy a scarf and perhaps a lesson. The scarf would be easy. The lesson, as the boutique was about to learn, would be paid for in more than fabric. If this tale brushes your sleeve, let the drum carry it farther. Like to keep the story walking? Share with someone who has been trailed while only following their own list, and comment with your City Plus time so the next part finds your market before pride rearranges the mannequins. Cedar Row is the kind of street that believes in reflections. The windows remember faces. The faces pretend not to remember windows. Silk and Sandalwood had learned to speak softly to wallets and loudly to insecurity. Inside, dresses that moved only at certain salaries, jewelry that preferred whispers, and sales associates who wore smiles like uniforms. Aisha Sankofa walked with the unhurried courage of an errand that knows its worth. She lifted a cuff bracelet, brass with a ripple of blue enamel like a fish remembering the ocean. "Beautiful," she murmured, and the word did not need witnesses. "Excuse me," said the shadow, arriving again. Her name tag read Pearl. "We keep our fine pieces near the register." She extended a hand at nothing in particular and everything at once. Aisha replaced the bracelet gently. "Near the register or near the heart?" she asked, half to Pearl, half to the store. Pearl's smile tightened. "We've had incidents," she said. The words sat on her tongue like a stone thrown from a crowd. "We hope you don't mind." "Hope is a good fabric," Aisha said. "It stretches." She moved on, touching seams, reading stitches like sentences. Some garments lie on the hanger and confess only at home. These confessed early. The tailoring was honest. At the back, a woman with a clipboard watched as birds watch a hawk, ready to declare alarm and ownership both. Madame Elise, store manager, wore a blazer that loved starch and rules that loved mirrors. She raised her chin like a curtain. "Is everything to your liking?" she asked, a question that had been sharpened on other mouths. Aisha turned. "The clothes are fine," she said. "The welcome is still being hemmed." Elise blinked, recalibrating. She had mastered apology as performance. She had not yet learned apology as architecture. "We appreciate all customers," she recited. "We're a small boutique, so we try to be attentive." "Attentive is when you notice someone needs a different size before they ask," Aisha replied, voice flat as a yardstick. "What you are is suspicious with perfume." Near the door the bell chimed. Another shopper entered. A woman in beige who wore wealth the way some people wear sunscreen, everywhere carelessly. Pearl's shadow transferred itself, but only halfway. It obeyed the gravity of Aisha, as all shadows do when the sun insists. Aisha selected a scarf, silk, hand-rolled edge, the color of late mango and early flame. She held it to her throat, and the boutique realized the light had been misplacing itself all day. "I'll take this," she said. "At the register," Elise said, relief dressing itself as hospitality. She nodded to Pearl, who quickened into overservice. "We also have an installment plan," Pearl added too brightly, "for for customers who—" Aisha set the scarf on the counter and placed beside it a card. Not black, not platinum. Plain white. A. Sankofa. Nothing else. Names can be currencies when backed by deeds. I prefer to pay once, she said. It keeps the story short. Elise squinted at the name. Her mind reached for a ladder it didn't own. Sankofa, where have I heard? Then decided to keep both feet on the ground of assumption. She rang the price like a bell that wanted to be heard in another neighborhood. Also, Aisha said quietly, please remove the security tag from the conversation you have been having with my hair, my hands, my step. Madam? Pearl faltered. Your eyes, Aisha said, not cruel. They have been patrolling me. It makes me noisy inside. I do not enjoy being stolen from by someone else's imagination. Silence folded itself like tissue paper over an expensive mistake. A man in a charcoal suit pushed through the door. Kweku Owusu, assistant property manager for Cedar Row. He had the practiced glance of people who believe in leases more than neighbors. He scanned the room. Everything all right, Madam Elise? Aisha's smile did not move. Everything is about to be, she said. May I have a receipt, please, itemized. Put your return policy on the back. Then, before I go, we will talk. Not long, just enough to teach tomorrow what today forgot. Pearl's fingers trembled on the keys. Elise swallowed and glanced at Kweku, as if he were a window with better weather outside it. Our policies are standard, she said, letting the word standard do the work that respect should. You have a policy for merchandise, Aisha answered. Do you have one for manners? The bell chimed again. This time it brought two girls from the university, braids, laughter, coins pooled for one nice thing. They drifted toward a sale rack, then saw Aisha, saw the orbit of attention around her, and retreated by habit, old as mother's warnings. Don't touch what is touching you with disrespect, Aisha noticed. She tucked the lesson into her pocket with the receipt. One more thing, she said to Elise, the way a seamstress says last pin. The fund that owns this building also invests in stores. It believes in good stories. It enjoys returns that are not only numbers. Elise nodded without understanding, a ritual as common as dust. Aisha tied the scarf loosely. It obeyed her throat as some things do when their destiny is a certain person. She left, and Cedar Row resumed pretending that glass cannot hear. Outside, under a jacaranda that scattered purple like postponed apologies, Aisha dialed her father. Baba, she said when he answered, and the word braided childhood to decision. Do you have 10 minutes and 2 ears? Always, he said. Did the city treat you well? The city is trying, she said. A boutique failed its test. I would like to give it a makeup exam. Her father chuckled softly. Careful, Aisha. Power is a sharp needle. Don't sew your fingers. I will sew a bench instead, she said. One for welcome. One that teaches people how to sit with their assumptions until the splinters make them wiser. Her father grew quiet, the way oceans do before deciding to be waves again. Bring me a plan by morning, he said. Bring me a proverb I can put on the wood. I already have it, Aisha said. Welcome is part of the price. The drum in the jacaranda's bark tapped twice. The wind gathered receipts. A tale. A tale. Let it be told. The return, the reveal, and the bench of welcome morning in the city is a dress rehearsal. Mistakes are forgiven if you know your lines by noon. At 10, Aisha returned to Cedar Row with 3 companions. Uncle Bediako, a lawyer who prefers plain speech. Amadedi, artisan and carpenter, with hands that convert shame into furniture. And Nana Kay, communications woman whose work is to cure sentences of their diseases. They walked into silk and sandalwood as if entering a story and not a shop. The bell's nervous curtsy sounded again. Elise stiffened. Pearl found busy work in a drawer that did not need it. Good morning, Aisha said, placing a folder on the counter. I would like to speak with your owner or the person who pretends to be when rent is due. Elise swallowed. The owner, Madame Lorna, comes at noon. I am the manager. Then let's start, Aisha said. She opened the folder. On top, the receipt, the card, a letter on Sankofa capital letterhead. Elise's eyes claimed literacy and then begged for a translator. The letter said, Our fund is exploring strategic partnerships on Cedar Row to improve customer experience and brand equity. We begin with conversation. Kindly greet our questions before we greet our money, Elise read, reread. You are a customer, Aisha said, saving her from the trap. And also the investor's daughter. Both can be true like morning and afternoon, and both must be treated with one mouth. Kweku Owusu arrived again, this time cautious as a goat near a new fence. He recognized the letterhead, the kind of paper that makes calluses soft. Madam Sankofa, he said, performing rapid arithmetic on his politeness. We welcome. Careful, Aisha cut in. Yesterday I was followed. Today I am welcomed because of a letter. If your welcome only greets titles, it is not welcome, it is interest. Uncle Bediako cleared his throat, like a courtroom waking up. We're here for specific reforms, he said, not apologies that evaporate. Pearl shot Elise a look that said, I told you your face is too tight. Elise returned a look that said you follow too loudly. 90% of policy is looks that never admit to being words. First, Aisha said, we install a bench of welcome, here by the entrance where the light corrects itself. She nodded to Ama Dede, who rolled in a long wooden bench carved overnight from Iroko that still smelled of rain. The back read, carved deep, welcome is part of the price. On either arm, a small relief, an open palm, and a receipt. Elise's eyebrows climbed to the mezzanine. A bench, she said, as if the word had taxes. A bench, Aisha confirmed, where staff sit 10 minutes at the start of every shift to read today's proverb and greet the first 3 customers with a quality that cannot be faked. Where offenders sit 1 hour, staff who trail mouths more than merchandise, and customers who speak insult more fluently than please. This is not punishment, it is calibration. Ama tapped the bench's spine. Sturdy, she said, can carry many mistakes. Second, Aisha continued, we create reason cards, small laminated cards that answer questions before mouths become weapons. She slid a mock-up across the counter. Front, how we help, sizing, styling, special orders, hold items for 24 hours, how we protect, security tags on every item, cameras for all of us, bag policy posted, how we greet, by name if you offer it, by good morning if you don't. Back. What we won't do? Trail you like a shadow, ask for ID without a transaction, call security because of your skin or sneakers. If we fail, bench plus apology, plus coupon, plus staff training same week. Third, said Nanake, we adopt Greet Ask Assist from the city's public protocol. Here's your script. Greet. Good morning, welcome to Silken Sandalwood. Ask, is there a fabric, color, or size you'd like help finding? Assist. Offer space or stay close. Customer chooses, not your suspicion. Elise pressed her lips into a shape that had successfully resisted other people's improvements. And if someone steals, she asked. Stealing is a behavior, not a profile, Bediako said. Your cameras and tags will speak. Your eyes will not invent new evidence. Pearl, to her credit, lifted a hand. I may have been too present yesterday, she admitted, but we've had incidents. We get blamed when something goes missing. And you will still be blamed if something goes missing, Aisha said. The difference is now you will not be blamed for people going missing from your welcome. At noon, Madame Lorna arrived, filmed by the light she had paid for and the regret she had not. She took in the bench, the folder, the letterhead, the calm army arrayed behind a scarf. What is all this? She asked, the way queens ask questions to remind everyone else about crowns. Your makeup exam, Aisha said. Yesterday your shop failed a test. Today we teach the answers. Lorna laughed, a brittle sound. We've served this city for 8 years. Our clients include ministers, singers, wives who think they are ministers. We don't need lectures. You need receipts, Aisha said. Not the paper kind, the kind the village writes in its mouth when it speaks your name. Bediako whispered. We can do this the gentle way or the newspaper way. Lorna's spine reconsidered. Money respects silence. It also respects headlines. What do you want? She asked, humor gone on break. Aisha listed them, each like a seam you either sew or the dress falls. Bench of welcome installed and kept. Reason: cards printed, pocketed, practiced. Greet, ask, assist, trained, posted, measured. Seating for browsers, 2 chairs, because standing is not a loyalty test. Quarterly community day, styling tips taught by staff to high school students, so they enter stores as clients, not suspects. Fair public note, not a "we're sorry if you felt" puddle, a clear apology with commitments. And the alternative, Lorna said, because pride always needs to check the exit. Sankofa pulls its lease support campaign from Cedar Row, Aisha answered. And the story tells itself with you as the punchline. Silence weighed the options like fabric. Lorna looked at the bench. The carving glowed, stubborn as a proverb. How much for the wood? She asked, attempting a detour into control. It's paid, Aisha said. What it costs now is behavior. Pearl looked at her manager with a plea disguised as professionalism. Madam, she said, if I had sat on that bench yesterday, I would not have followed this lady like a mosquito that thinks it is security. Lorna exhaled. Fine, she said. We will try your program. Not mine, Aisha said. Ours. Cedar Row belongs to the city. We just rent the glass. They started that day. Amma anchored the bench. Nana wrote the note with Lorna, editing out cowardly verbs. Bediako checked the apology for legal cowardice. He found some, replaced it with courage. Pearl stood at the door and practiced greeting the next 5 customers as if their names were future. 2 hours later, a woman in a red suit entered, eyes already defensive from a lifetime of being priced by glances. Good afternoon, Pearl said, voice soft like folded cloth. Welcome to Silk and Sandalwood. Take your time. If you want me, I am your neighbor. If not, I am your wall. The woman's shoulders dropped an inch. That is a form of healing. News travels faster than perfume. By evening, Cedar Row knew about the bench of welcome. Some laughed. Some came to sit and see if the letters would enter their backs through the wood. They did. Aisha sat last, after the shop closed, and read the carving with her palm. Lorna stood beside her, less queen now, more seamstress. Why do you care? She asked, not unkind. Because I love to buy without borrowing someone else's anxiety, Aisha said. Because investment is a kind of parenting. You do not only feed, you teach. The knight nodded and began to tuck in the day. The drum in the jacaranda tapped 3 times, begin again. The market day, the mistake that tried to return, and the salute without uniform. 2 weeks later, Cedar Row held a market day, stalls outside, music that believed in feet, deals that believed in ears. City Hall sent a small delegation to admire its own permission. Bloggers came with cameras that pretended to be birds. The bench of welcome stood by Silk and Sandalwood's door, oiled, lettered, ready to carry new and old weight. A trio of schoolgirls approached, giggling like coins in a pocket. Pearl greeted them like sun on laundry. Come, she said, touch. Touching is free. If you want prices, they are not secrets. Across the walkway, a man in office clothes whispered to his friend, Watch, students will steal. His friend shrugged a cowardly shrug. The drum in the planter box made a sound like a frown. In the late afternoon, a small storm gathered. A woman discovered a duplicate charge on her card. 2 scarves rung when she bought one. Receipt in hand, she marched, rightly, toward the boutique, voice warming up. Everyone knows how tragedies and receipts travel together. I want a manager, she said, which is sometimes a prayer and sometimes a threat. Elise came, ready to earn the bench or earn her paycheck. Let me see and listen, she said, which are the 2 hands of customer service. She read, she listened, she did not argue with ink. We made the mistake, she said aloud, looking at the bench of welcome as if to borrow its backbone. We will reverse it with speed. Please sit. On our bench, if you like. The bench is for belonging, not only lessons. The woman sat and laughed in spite of herself. I thought you would gaslight me until the scarf became 3, she muttered. Today is different. Not different, Elise said. Decided. Meanwhile, on the sidewalk, a lesser scene tried to grow into a greater one. The office man from earlier pointed at the schoolgirl's tote. Check their bags, he urged Pearl softly, the way people try to recruit others into their private prisons. Better safe. Pearl remembered yesterday and tomorrow's. She stepped toward the girls but stopped, turned to the reason card in her apron. read the back to herself like a spell against old habits. She pivoted to the man instead. "Sir," she said, "we do not profile. If you have specific concern, say it with a reason. If not, we proceed with welcome." He sputtered. "Young people these days." "Buy," Pearl finished, "and we sell with dignity on the receipt." She turned to the girls. "Enjoy. If you want to try that blazer, I will be your mirror." They smiled with teeth that had adopted a city and found it reciprocal. At 4 o'clock, a small ceremony gathered itself from rumor. The investment council arrived with Aisha's father, the founding partner who looked like a tree that had learned to be shade. He shook hands with vendors, nodded to the bench, greeted Cedar Row as if it had saved his son's life once. Lorna stood beside Aisha at the door. She had slept nearer to humility since the bench arrived. Her face had learned new muscles. "I won't lie," she whispered. "Some days I hate your bench." "Good," Aisha said. "Marriage works best with an honest spouse." The councilman cleared his throat. "Neighbors," he said, "the fund is renewing support for Cedar Row. We have new conditions. Every shop will adopt Greet Ask Assist, reason cards, and a bench of welcome or equivalent ritual. Our measure is simple. Mystery shoppers will test your greetings before they test your prices." There were groans and applause and the ordinary noises cities make while changing their minds. "And," he added, "we are naming an annual award, the Open Door, for businesses whose welcome adds to the city's wealth faster than their sales. This year's goes to Silk and Sandalwood." He paused. "Because they failed publicly and corrected publicly, and because they let a bench tell them the truth." People clapped the way places clap when they recognize their own work. Lorna accepted the small plaque. She did not pretend she earned it alone. "This belongs to Pearl," she said, "who has learned to be near without being on, and to Aisha, who sat us down and made sure we didn't get up the same." A blogger with a microphone jumped in. "Miss Sankofa, are you the investor, the daughter, the customer? Which rank are we applauding?" Aisha smiled toward the bench. "Daughter is my sweetest rank," she said. "Customer is my most democratic. Investor is the one with the pen, but neighbor is the one that lasts." The blogger nodded, disappointed he could not turn that into a fight. From the edge of the crowd, the office man, the one who had asked Pearl to check the girls' bags, raised a hand sheepishly. "I said a foolish thing earlier," he confessed, uncoached. "Can I sit on the bench?" "Please," Aisha said. "Write one sentence about what it taught you." He sat. He wrote, "The door is not mine. I am just lucky it opens." He left the paper on the bench as if returning a borrowed book. As the ceremony wound down, the city communications chief, who had her own story with cameras and benches, arrived to shake hands and quietly film the small victory. She caught a frame of Aisha, tying her mango flame scarf in the breeze and saving a corner with a practiced finger. "What proverb should we print beneath your picture?" she asked. Aisha looked at Cedar Row, at the girls giggling into a mirror, at Pearl learning to be useful without being everywhere, at Lorna sharing tasks like bread, at the office man discovering that benches sometimes baptize. "Print this," she said. "Welcome is how money remembers you." Dusk put its cool hand on shoulders. The jacaranda released more purple, as if offering stamps for exit. The drum in the planter tapped once more, "Go home wiser," and the street obeyed. Before Aisha left, Elise approached with something wrapped in tissue. "A gift," she said, "paid for by yesterday." Inside lay a narrow brass cuff, enamel ripple like a fish remembering the ocean, the same one Aisha had admired on the first day. "As a receipt," Elise added, "for the lesson." Aisha hesitated. "I don't accept gifts from students," she said softly, "but I accept partnerships." She slipped a banknote into the tip jar they had added beside the bench for staff tea and training, and promised to bring a school group next month to practice entering and being received. Near the curb, an elderly woman who had watched everything with eyes that qualify for witness smiled and gave the conclusion that belongs to grandmothers. "A door is a drum," she said to no one and everyone. "You must learn the rhythm before you knock." A tale, let it be told. The telling is finished. The welcome will continue the work.